Get on the ground. Hands where I can see them. The scream cut through the night like a blade. Naomi Carter froze, just a bottle of water in one hand and a pack of gum in the other. She had just stepped out of a convenience store on Pinewood Avenue. Street lamps buzzed, neon flickered. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, but nothing was louder than the pounding in her chest. What did I do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. A police cruiser's lights flashed red and blue across her skin. Two white officers, guns already drawn, stormed toward her like she was holding a bomb. Turn around! Don't move! People on the sidewalk stopped. Phones came out. One woman whispered, "Start recording." If you've ever witnessed injustice and felt powerless, you're not alone. Stay with this story, because this time, justice won't come easy, but it will come. And if you stand against racism and corruption, drop your city in the comments and follow for more stories that expose the truth. Back on the street, one of the officers, name tag reading Sullivan, grabbed Naomi's arm roughly. "Don't play innocent," he spat. "You were just seen making a drop in the alley." Naomi blinked. Drop? What drop? I don't even know what you're talking about. The second officer, Hayes, yanked her backwards. Cold, steel handcuffs clicked into place. Her wrists burned, her dignity shattered. "I didn't do anything. Please check the cameras. I was just buying—" "No one's buying your story," Hayes sneered, lifting a black duffel bag from under her car. He unzipped it slowly. Inside, bricks of white powder. Naomi's mouth went dry. She shook her head in disbelief. "That's not mine. I swear I've never—" "Save it for the jury," Sullivan muttered. Just hours before everything fell apart, Naomi Carter was still the shining hope of an entire community. She was a sophomore at Hudson University, majoring in pre-law on a full-ride scholarship. A 19-year-old black girl, bright, determined, and always holding her head high, believing that justice was real as long as you lived right. In class, she never sat at the back. Naomi was always the one raising her hand. The student professors remembered by name, the voice that spoke up when others stayed silent. Outside of school, she spent weekends tutoring children in the low-income neighborhood where she grew up. Many of those kids didn't have fathers, didn't have anyone telling them they mattered. But when Naomi walked in, the whole room lit up. To them, she wasn't just a mentor. She was proof that dreams weren't only for the privileged. At home, Naomi was the rock of her family. She supported her mother and helped raise her 8-year-old brother, Malik. Her father had been absent for as long as she could remember, or at least that's what she believed, since her mother never spoke much about him. Naomi didn't hold it against her. She understood. Every night after class, she'd cook dinner, help Malik with his homework, then stay up late finishing essays and presentations. No one asked her to do all that. She did it because she wanted to prove that a black girl could walk into any room and make people listen. Naomi didn't smoke. She didn't party. She didn't cause trouble. She once said during a scholarship interview that she believed if she followed the rules, worked hard, and stayed out of trouble, society would treat her fairly. "I'm not afraid of the law," she said with a smile. "I plan to be part of it." The interviewer had nodded, impressed. "This young woman," he said afterward, "is going to change the world." And it seemed like she was on track. Just last week, Naomi had been accepted into a summer internship with a nonprofit that advocated for the wrongfully convicted. It was her dream job, the first stepping stone in her carefully mapped-out future. Graduate early, go to Harvard Law, become a civil rights attorney, and one day, maybe even a judge. Naomi Carter believed in justice. Completely. But that evening, when she was thrown to the sidewalk, wrists shackled behind her back, staring into the flashing blue and red lights of a police cruiser, everything she had ever believed in began to crack. Because the cruel truth is this: she could be an honor student. She could be the perfect daughter. She could be a model citizen. But to those in power, to those with badges and bias, she was still just another black face on the street. What they didn't know was, they picked the wrong girl. They thought Naomi was just another name on a case file, another easy conviction. But Naomi Carter wasn't alone, and the man she was about to call, the man the world believed had vanished, was the one person they never should have crossed. Inside the back of the police car, the air felt frozen. Not from the AC, but from the suffocating silence of injustice. Naomi Carter sat with her wrists still cuffed, bruises forming beneath the steel. Her head rested lightly against the window, blinking through the blur of streetlights. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. But inside, everything was breaking apart. This can't be real, she whispered. The Pinewood police station looked less like a house of justice and more like a crumbling fortress. Faded brick walls, flickering yellow lights, a single surveillance camera blinking red in the corner. Naomi was shoved into a cold interrogation room. No windows, just a metal table, 2 chairs, and a storm of fear. She sat down, still cuffed, eyes wide with disbelief. The door swung open. Detective Sullivan entered first, carrying the black duffel bag, the one they claimed was found under her car. Hayes followed behind, his face unreadable, his eyes sharp and smug. "Recognize this?" Sullivan asked, tossing the bag on the table like a trophy. Naomi stared. "I've never seen it before." "Oh, really?" Hayes chuckled. "So I guess it just magically showed up under your car?" "I don't own a car. I walked here from campus. That detail wasn't in their script." They hesitated, but Sullivan quickly recovered, pulling out a grainy black and white photo. Someone in a hoodie handing something to another figure behind the convenience store. "This is you, making the drop," he said flatly. Naomi squinted. The figure was too blurry to identify. No face, no timestamp, just shadows. "That's not me," she replied firmly. Sullivan shrugged. "We've got 2 witnesses who say it is." That's when the door opened again. Naomi's heart stopped. Camille, her roommate, her best friend, the one who stood by her through everything, the one who held her when her mom was in the hospital, the one who called Naomi sister. Naomi's voice cracked with relief. "Cam, thank God. Tell them—" But Camille didn't meet her eyes. She folded her arms tightly across her chest and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. I saw Naomi go behind the store." Naomi's world collapsed. "What? Camille, no, you were there. You know I didn't leave the counter." Camille looked down. "I'm sorry." Naomi turned to Sullivan and Hayes, her voice shaking. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. Sullivan simply smiled, like the final piece of the puzzle had just clicked into place. 3 witnesses, a bag of drugs, a blurry photo. That's a clean little package, isn't it? Naomi shot up, shouting, "Check the security cameras. The store had cameras. They'll prove I never left the front." Sullivan leaned back in his chair and exhaled with exaggerated pity. "Oh, the cameras? Yeah, about that. Seems like the store's system crashed tonight. Power surge or something. No footage." The floor fell out from under her. Everything had been laid out. The bag was planted. The photo was manipulated. Her friend betrayed her. The evidence erased. Naomi realized she hadn't walked into a misunderstanding. She had walked into an execution, disguised as due process. Hours passed. Finally, they allowed her a phone call. She walked slowly down the hallway, past drunks slumped on benches, past a teenage boy crying alone in a cell. She picked up the receiver, hands still shaking. She didn't call a lawyer. She didn't call her mother. She called him. The man she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. The one her mother avoided mentioning. The one who had disappeared from her life like a shadow. The line connected. A voice answered, deep, steady, emotionless. "Hello?" Naomi's voice trembled. "Dad, I've been arrested. They said I did something. I didn't. I swear I didn't." A pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Pinewood Police Station." Another pause. Longer this time. Then came 5 words. Software. Calm. Deadly certain. "I'll take care of it." Click. He hung up. Naomi stood there, the dial tone buzzing in her ear like the slow warning of a coming storm. She didn't know what he would do, didn't know what he was capable of now. But someone was about to regret ever laying a hand on Naomi Carter. The courtroom was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that brings peace. It was the kind of silence that strangles the air, the kind that comes before a storm so carefully planned, so thoroughly rehearsed, that no one even dares to breathe out of rhythm. Naomi Carter sat at the defendant's table, her hands cuffed in front of her, the skin around her wrists raw. She sat straight, shoulders back, as her lawyer, a public defender so overworked his tie was crooked, shuffled papers and cleared his throat. Across from her, Sullivan and Hayes leaned back in their chairs like kings in their own castle, arms crossed, smirks barely hidden, like they had already won. And in some ways, they had. The judge was an older white man, eyes heavy-lidded and cold, his mouth set in a permanent frown. Every time Naomi's lawyer spoke, he waved a dismissive hand. When the prosecutor spoke, the judge nodded as if they shared an inside joke. It wasn't a trial, it was theater. And Naomi? She wasn't the audience. She was the sacrifice. The prosecutor rose. He was tall, polished, with a voice trained by years of courtroom performances. Every syllable rolled out like gospel. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, "what we have here is not a misunderstanding. It is not a mistake. It is an open and shut case of criminal intent." He gestured toward the black duffel bag on the evidence table, still zippered shut, as if daring someone to open it. "These drugs," he said, "were found under Miss Carter's vehicle, in a neighborhood known for gang activity. She was seen making an exchange. 3 witnesses, including her own roommate. And I ask you, why would someone lie about something like that?" Naomi wanted to scream. Why? Because someone told them to. Because someone paid them. Because this wasn't about the truth. It never was. Her lawyer stood up, shaky, sweating. "Your Honor," he said, "the prosecution has failed to provide any forensic evidence linking my client to these drugs. No fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance footage, no body cam recordings, just hearsay and speculation." The judge didn't even look at him. "Move along, counselor," he said coldly. Naomi clenched her fists. Across the room, her mother sat in the back row of the gallery, hands clutched so tightly in her lap, her knuckles had turned white. Tears ran down her cheeks silently. She wasn't allowed to speak. She could only watch. And Naomi knew this courtroom wasn't a place for truth. It was a place where black girls like her were always guilty first and human second. Sullivan took the stand next. He sat with ease, adjusted his tie, and looked at the jury with false concern. She was acting suspicious, he said smoothly. When we approached, she became aggressive, refused to cooperate. Naomi's jaw tightened. What he meant was, she asked why she was being stopped. She dared to ask for her rights, and for that, they labeled her dangerous. She resisted arrest, Sullivan added, and we later found the drugs in her vehicle. Vehicle, Naomi thought bitterly. What vehicle? I walked there. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge cut him off. No more delays, counselor. Let the officer speak. Naomi could barely breathe. She looked around and realized what this really was, a machine. And she was caught in its gears. Every word from the cops was treated like scripture. Every word from her was treated like noise. She wasn't Naomi Carter, the scholar, the daughter, the dreamer. She was just another black girl they could file away into a system built to bury her. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a part of her refused to die. Because her father hadn't called back. Because he hadn't raged. Because he hadn't begged. He was calm. Too calm. And if Naomi knew anything about him, that meant the storm was already on its way. Caleb Carter was cleaning his gun when the phone rang. Not in fear, not in anticipation. It was just something he did. Hands steady, mind calm, as if old habits never died. His apartment was quiet, dimly lit. A single photo frame stood on a shelf, turned face down. He hadn't looked at it in 3 years, but when the phone buzzed, something in his body stilled. Unknown number, restricted line. He picked up. Hello? A voice, barely holding together, whispered on the other end. Dad, it's me, Naomi. They arrested me. I don't know what's happening. I didn't do anything. Silence. He didn't speak. Didn't ask why. Didn't ask how. He just listened. They said I had drugs, but I swear, I was just at a store. Please, help me. Then the last words came out of her mouth, cracked and trembling. I didn't do it, Dad. Another long silence. Then came his voice. Low, razor sharp. Where are you? Pinewood Police Station. Caleb didn't respond. He just hung up. And the world shifted. He didn't panic. Didn't shout. He stood, placed the gun on the table, walked across the room, and opened a drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside, a phone with no number, a key, a drive, a coin-sized black card with a golden emblem etched on the surface, an eagle with 3 arrows clutched in its claws. Caleb Carter wasn't just her father. He was a shadow, a ghost, a former CIA black ops specialist whose name had been erased from every record for a reason. And now, they had taken his daughter. Not just taken her, framed her. They made one mistake. They assumed Naomi was alone. They didn't know who they were dealing with. The first call went out, to the DOJ. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask. He simply said, check your inbox in 5 minutes. After that, you'll understand why you're going to do exactly what I say. He hung up. Second call, Internal Affairs. Detectives Sullivan and Hayes, pull their records now. Third call, the FBI. This one wasn't about favors. This one was personal. I need Vanessa, he said. Now. The man on the other end hesitated. Vanessa? After what happened in Caracas? I said now. Vanessa Langston had once been the best undercover informant the FBI had. Now she was off the grid. Freelance, dangerous, but she owed Caleb her life. And when he called, she answered. Her voice came through, cool as ever. You only call when the system breaks. It just broke, he said. And you want me to break it further? Number, I want you to expose it. That night, Caleb Carter went dark. He wasn't just looking for revenge. He was preparing for war, not with fists, not with bullets, but with truth. Weaponized, unforgiving, and absolute. Because if the justice system thought it could destroy his daughter with lies and walk away unscathed, then it had no idea who Caleb Carter truly was. The system had buried the truth, but Caleb Carter had made a career out of digging up what no one wanted found. It was past midnight when he met the hacker. A rundown arcade on the edge of the city, neon lights flickering like dying stars. The back room smelled of cold pizza and old wires. Screens glowed in silence, casting digital shadows across the walls. The hacker's name was Ash. He owed Caleb a favor, a big one. Ash leaned back, feet on the desk, chewing sunflower seeds like he wasn't terrified. But he was. Everyone who knew Caleb Carter well enough to recognize him knew not to say no. Caleb slid a flash drive across the table. I need the original surveillance footage from the Ridge Mart on Pinewood, not the one shown in court, the real one, the uncut version. Ash scoffed, trying to seem relaxed. You do realize the cops said the system crashed, right? Fried drives, power surge, all gone? Caleb didn't blink. Get it back. Ash hesitated, then nodded. Give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, Ash froze in front of the monitor. Holy, what? Caleb asked, already knowing. Ash pulled up a grainy but intact video feed. There was Naomi, entering through the front of the store. Not the back, no exchange, no duffel bag. Just a girl grabbing a bottle of water and a pack of gum. And then the camera switched. The back alley, time-stamped 3 minutes before the cops arrived. It showed Detective Hayes, looking around nervously, carrying a black duffel bag, and sliding it underneath Naomi's parked car. Frame by frame, clear as daylight. They planted it. Caleb exhaled through his nose. But Ash wasn't done. There's something else, he whispered. You're gonna want to hear this. He clicked open a hidden audio file recovered from police radio chatter. It was Sullivan's voice, laughing. We could toss a brick of coke at any black kid in this city and the jury would still believe us over them. It's that easy. Ash swallowed. They really thought this would never surface. Caleb's voice was a whisper. But it just did. Next call, Vanessa Langston. He sent the footage, the audio, the metadata. She called back instantly. This is nuclear. I want it leaked, Caleb said. But not yet. We time it with the courtroom reveal. They won't see it coming. Got it. I'll package it, clean it, and trace back every related case Sullivan and Hayes ever touched. Caleb's voice dropped lower. Not just them. I want the names of every judge, every prosecutor, every officer who knew and stayed silent. There was a pause. Vanessa's voice returned, colder than before. I hope they said goodbye to their careers. The shadows moved that night, but this time, they weren't hiding corruption. They were hunting it. Caleb Carter, once a ghost whispered about in enemy circles overseas, was back. But this time, he wasn't after terrorists. He was after men in uniform, men in courtrooms, men in power, men who thought they could destroy his daughter and go to sleep at night. He was about to wake them up. One by one. The courtroom felt smug that morning, like it had already decided the outcome before the trial even resumed. Naomi Carter sat quietly in her seat, her wrists no longer cuffed, but her name still shackled by the lies built around her. Sullivan sat confidently on the witness stand. Hayes leaned back in his chair, arms folded. The judge flipped through papers, uninterested in anything that resembled justice. Her mother, in the gallery, looked down at her lap, silently praying. Naomi, meanwhile, just waited. She wasn't scared anymore, because something had shifted, and they didn't know it yet. But this courtroom was about to become a crime scene. The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "we'd like to admit final evidence confirming Miss Carter's connection to the narcotics found. A statement from the responding officers and supporting testimony." The judge nodded. "Granted. Let's move this along." But before he could continue, the door to the courtroom creaked open. Everyone turned. A man in a dark gray suit walked in. No badge, no briefcase, just presence. Caleb Carter stepped into the room, calm, collected, and carrying nothing but a flash drive. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't look at Naomi, didn't flinch when the bailiff blocked his path. He simply handed the flash drive to the bailiff and whispered 6 words. "Play this, now judge's screen." The judge frowned. "Who is this man?" Before anyone could answer, a second door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, badges raised, suits everywhere. The room erupted in gasps. "This court is now under federal review," one of them announced. "All proceedings are paused pending evidence review." The judge shouted, "This is outrageous! You can't just—" But his words were cut off when the video began playing. On the screen, Naomi walking into Ridgemart through the front door. Camera timestamp, 5:32 p.m. She picks up a bottle of water. Gum. Pays at the counter. No duffel bag, no alley, no exchange. Cut to Detective Hayes, crouched beside Naomi's car, planting the black duffel bag under the rear tire, looking over his shoulder, then walking away. Then came the audio. Sullivan's voice, cocky and cruel. "We could toss a brick of coke at any black kid in this city, and the jury would still believe us over them. It's that easy." Silence fell over the courtroom like a guillotine. The jury stared in horror. The judge's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Hayes turned pale. Sullivan tried to stand, but an FBI agent was already behind him. "You are under arrest for evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, perjury, and conspiracy to falsify charges." Sullivan's voice cracked. "I want a lawyer." "You'll need one," the agent replied. "A damn good one." The prosecutor tried to leave, but 2 agents blocked his path. The judge reached for his gavel, but it was too late. Truth had walked into the room, wrapped in wires, time-stamped to the second, and backed by the most dangerous man in the room. Caleb Carter didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Naomi stood slowly. For the first time since this nightmare began, she breathed freely. Her mother sobbed in the gallery. The jury foreman looked to the judge. "Your Honor, I think we're done here." The judge didn't respond. He simply stood up and walked out, because the system had just been exposed, not by protests, not by press, but by a father who refused to let his daughter become another forgotten name in a broken machine. And the world was watching. The chains were gone, but Naomi Carter still felt them. The courtroom was nearly empty now. Sullivan and Hayes were in handcuffs. The judge had left in silence. The prosecutor was being escorted out by 2 FBI agents, his expression hollow. But Naomi didn't look at any of them. She looked at her mother. Mrs. Carter stood trembling, a hand over her mouth. And when Naomi stepped toward her, free, upright, and whole, her mother broke. Tears fell fast. Arms flung around her daughter. Not just with relief, but with the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. 1,000 silent prayers. "You came back," she whispered. "I never left," Naomi said. Outside the courthouse, the sky was golden with late afternoon sun, but the crowd that had gathered wasn't there for the light. They were there for the truth. Signs waved, phones recorded, voices chanted Naomi's name, because the footage had gone viral just hours earlier, because the lie had crumbled on live television. And now, this girl, the one they almost threw away, was a symbol. A reporter rushed up to her, mic in hand. "Miss Carter, do you have anything to say to the system that tried to silence you?" Naomi paused. She could have cursed them, could have screamed, could have demanded revenge. But instead she looked into the camera with clear, steady eyes. "I believed in the system," she said, "until it tried to destroy me. But I'm still here. And now, I don't just want justice for me. I want it for everyone who never got a chance to speak. I want the laws changed. I want the people responsible out. And I won't stop until it happens." The crowd roared. Not because it was loud, but because it was true. That night, Caleb sat alone in his apartment. He didn't watch the news, didn't celebrate, didn't call. He simply opened the photo frame he'd once turned down, now facing up again. A picture of a little girl, beaming in front of a school building, with missing front teeth and eyes full of dreams. He traced her smile with his finger. "You did good, kid," he whispered. Then he reached for his encrypted laptop, logged in, and opened a folder labeled Operation Clean House. Because this wasn't over. Naomi was free. But the rot was deeper than just 2 dirty cops and a coward judge. And now Caleb wasn't just a father avenging his daughter. He was a soldier on a mission again. And this time, the enemy wore a badge. Some victories come with confetti. Naomi's didn't. It came with silence. The kind that settles after a storm, just before you realize another one is coming. 3 days had passed since the courtroom exploded. Naomi was home, recovering. Her story had made national headlines. Activists called her a miracle. Celebrities tweeted her name. Civil rights groups begged her to speak on their behalf. But Naomi didn't care about fame. She cared about truth. And something still didn't sit right. How did the police know she'd be at that store? Why did Camille turn on her so quickly? And how did that prosecutor walk into the courtroom with such certainty, like he knew the outcome before the trial even began? That same night, in a sleek high-rise overlooking downtown, a man in a custom Navy suit stood by the window, sipping bourbon. He was calm, unbothered. The chaos hadn't touched him, not even a scratch. A phone buzzed on the desk. He answered. The voice on the other end trembled. "Sir, we lost the case. The video leaked. The officers were arrested. The judge resigned. We're exposed." The man took another sip of his drink, watching the city lights below. "No," he said softly. "We're not exposed. They caught a few pawns. The board is still intact." "But sir, the Carter girl," he cut in, "will become noise, like all the others." The voice hesitated. "And Caleb Carter?" That got the man's attention. He turned from the window, walked to the desk, and opened a drawer. Inside was a file, stamped across the top. Classified. Operator 731, Caleb Carter. He stared at it for a long moment, then said coldly, "He's back." That is a problem. "Do we initiate protocol?" He didn't answer right away. Then, almost lazily, he said, "Begin surveillance. Let's remind Mr. Carter that ghosts don't come back, without consequences." And with that, he hung up. Across town, Naomi opened her mailbox and found an unmarked envelope. Inside was a photograph, It was a picture of her, taken that morning from across the street. On the back, in red ink, were 5 chilling words. "You're not done yet, sweetheart." Her hands went cold. She looked up, scanning the street. Nothing. But someone had been watching. And now she knew she hadn't escaped the system. She had only pierced its surface. And beneath it was something far more dangerous than 2 dirty cops. The photo haunted her. It sat on her desk like a curse. Her face captured from afar, printed on glossy paper, too sharp, too close. The red ink on the back was dry, but it still felt warm in her hand. "You're not done yet, sweetheart." Naomi Carter stared at it in silence. This wasn't over. It wasn't even close. That night, she couldn't sleep. The walls of her room felt thinner, the windows more transparent. Every sound outside became a signal. Every shadow looked like someone watching. She opened her laptop, her finger hovering over the trackpad. She didn't go to Instagram or TikTok or any of the news sites still splashing her face on the front page. She opened a new document, typed 2 words. "They're watching." Then she paused and added, "But so am I." Across the city, Caleb Carter stood on the rooftop of a parking garage, the wind tugging at his coat. His phone vibrated once. A message from Vanessa. "That man you warned me about, the one you said pulled strings behind the Sullivan case. He's real. And he's still active." Attached was a grainy surveillance photo. The man in the Navy suit, drinking bourbon, smiling at the window like a man who had nothing to fear. Caleb stared at the screen, eyes hard. He'd seen that smile before, in operations that never made it to the news, in regimes that collapsed quietly, in men who thought they were untouchable. He closed the phone, slipped it into his pocket, and whispered, "Then we make him bleed." Meanwhile, in a federal facility 2 states away, a woman sat in a prison cell, reading Naomi's story in a newspaper. She folded the paper slowly, then looked into the camera mounted in the corner of her room, and smiled. "She's exactly who we've been waiting for," she whispered. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the walls, a secure line blinked to life. Someone had just received a signal. Naomi's voice narrates the final moment. "They tried to erase me. They tried to silence me, but they only made me louder." This isn't a story about a girl who almost went to prison. This is a story about a system that thought it was untouchable until I touched it. Screen fades to black. A single line appears. Naomi Carter will return,